I'm Ann LaBar,
And I'm Lisa Lancer Rose.
and this is
This Animal Life.
Today we delve into animal dreams, from insects to octopuses and beyond. I want to talk about, do animals dream? And after doing research, the answer is yes. So how you doing, Lisa?
Yeah, we're done here.
We're done. We'll see you
I
later
found the same
next
thing.
week.
Bye.
Bye. Actually, no, I have a lot of stuff. One of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this was it was an article I read in New Scientist, and what really pulled me in was the title.
Okay.
And the title, which is brilliant, is "Do Fruit Flies Dream of Electric Bananas?"
I love it.
I know. So I wanted to talk about that because as a poet, I saw fruit flies dream.
Yes.
What do they dream about? So before we get talking about what they dream about, I'm going to talk about this article because it brings up a couple of topics that kind of overshadow everything we talk about and why we started talking about this
Okay.
and about consciousness and treating animals as intelligent beings. So there's a lab, Ralph Greenspan wanted to, I guess everybody was talking about, they were doing EEGs on all these animals, cats, dogs, whatever. And he and his colleagues were at lunch one day and they said, "Ooh, nobody's ever recorded the EEGs of an insect."
Oh.
Fruit flies are perfect for anybody who doesn't know for research because you can run genetically, you can run through like I'm going to just make up a number, like 1,000 generations in a week, so you can watch evolution happen if you're like messing with genes.
Fast forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so it works really well. So Ralph Greenspan's research partner or colleague, Douglas Nitz, went to the lab after this and put an electrode on a fruit fly's brain, which is the size of a poppy seed.
So the electrode was probably bigger
I
than the
have
brain.
no idea. They had some pictures. I didn't look at them. And so they started messing around with it and they recorded brainwaves. Insects are generally considered basically little more than hardwired automatons, dim-witted, which we're starting to, I mean, if we got into bees, that's a whole other thing. But a fruit fly's brain contains 250,000 neurons. We have 100 billion.
Yeah.
And even the honeybee, which is the brainiest of insects, we think, has only 1 million neurons. Again, we have 100 billion. So on the surface of all that, a fruit fly's brain doesn't even compare to the complexity of a mammal's brain
Or birds,
or birds.
which I'm going to talk about.
Yes. Quite a while now, they've been doing a lot of studies with insects. And the studies show that fruit flies, because they have them handy in the lab,
Yeah.
and they're cheap probably, react very much like mammals do.
Oh,
In
no.
in the way that if you immerse them in, say, peach smells and shock their foot, they stay away from peaches.
Okay.
All right. Through studies, they've shown that they have short, medium, and long-term memory.
Wow. Okay.
Even honeybees can learn the difference between same and different.
No, those are categories,
Yes,
abstract categories.
right. And apply them to novel situations.
No. So
So
they
there's
generalize an abstraction.
yes. And I didn't want to go into detail, just to give you an example that they're a hell of a lot smarter than we think they are. What I really wanted to talk about was dreams. And to dream, in the scientific definition of dream, you have to sleep.
Mhm.
So sleep was thought to be only in vertebrates. But in 1999, this guy, Ralph Greenspan, and his team found that fruit flies sleep every night. So they wanted to see if they could measure the EEG waves and kind of track things. And voila, after the guy put the electrode on the little poppy seed brain,
Yeah.
they were the ones that first recorded an EEG of an insect. Its brain quiets down, it produces fewer spikes while it's sleeping, like a mammal brainstem during non-REM sleep. So the brain waves for non-REM sleep look very similar from a fruit fly to a mammal.
Okay. And we dream during non-REM as well as REM.
Oh, well, see, I don't know that. I'm thinking just REM.
I read that today somewhere.
Excellent. That's good to know because even though they suck you in with fruit fly dreams, they don't really talk about the dreams.
Well, they can't interview them.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't wake up and go, "Were you dreaming? What were you dreaming about?"
What's going on? And I was thinking about that. I'm like, how would they have REM sleep? Anyway, I don't know how you, I don't know.
Oh, the rapid eye part.
Yeah, rapid eye
Oh,
movement. They set him up, they somehow suspend this guy on a wire, the little fruit fly, and they have a green bar, which they somehow train it to associate with either something positive or negative.
okay.
And this green bar moves around and it'll see the green bar and kind of like try to maneuver itself to look at it and they move it. What they were looking for was unmistakable signs that they of what they call salience, which is just means attention. So when we pay attention, other things drop away,
Yes.
right? So
Mhm.
that's what they were looking for. And the thing about salience is, according to this research team, it is the root of consciousness. So what they wanted to do was find that out. And they basically did. And they were measuring the hertz, 20 between 20 and 30 hertz, basically what ours are. Somewhere it said 40 hertz, between 30 and 40, and we are at 40 hertz. We are paying attention, and other things drop away. Other senses drop away, everything. So when it's out of view, their brain activity lessens.
Suggests they're thinking about it.
Yes. And they're also making a judgment of what can safely be ignored.
Okay.
So suppression is also important to attention.
They're focusing.
Yeah. So the patterns of the brain waves where they say the fruit flies are paying attention are exactly like our brain waves. The reason that they're doing this is they want to find the root of consciousness. They want to find that path, that learning, that attention that will explain our consciousness.
Okay.
So they don't give a crap about the animals. It's just a way, like they'll acknowledge that insects are intelligent and somewhat similar to us and have brain activity like us
Mhm.
because it gives them a doorway into how we are unique.
Or that's what they're hoping?
Yeah. And they say that attention builds consciousness. It's memory related.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah, is
So
it learned?
they're focused on finding the root and the route of consciousness. So they're looking for it in them and so they can find it in us. And that can mean a lot of things. Philosophically, it's a big question,
Mhm.
but it can also be applied in other things that they do for us with Alzheimer's and this sort of thing, because attention deals with memory, which takes me to
Sleep?
sleep.
Yes.
And MIT,
I think you read the same study I did.
animals have complex dreams.
No, I read a different MIT study. Go ahead.
Okay. Animals have complex dreams. And this is an old study. So old, it's 2001, which I think is contemporary enough. The overall sort of the thesis of this article was that animals do have complex dreams and they're able to recall long sequences of events while they are asleep.
Mhm.
And one of the ways that they prove that, and this first appeared in an issue of a journal, MIT published it in a journal Neuron. And, if you've got a pet, they dream. Th- Come on. Your dog is going, "Ruff,
Yeah.
ruff." And the legs are moving.
Yeah, and the eyes are twitching and yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, this goes back to EEGs, and they look at the firing patterns when an animal is in REM sleep, the firing patterns of individual cells, a collection of individual cells, to determine what the dream's about. And they did this on rats. And what they would do is, at least my understanding of it, is record the brain waves of a rat going through a maze.
Yes.
And then when they sleep,
Mhm.
because they're trying to identify the content of the animal
Yes.
streams. Right. So when they go through the
I
maze,
read this,
they're
yes.
obviously going through the maze, right, in their dreams.
Yes, because those that had REM, am I stealing your thunder?
No, no, not at all.
Those rats that experienced more REM were better at the maze.
Yes, and that's it. It reinforces it's just as good as practice.
Yes.
As awake practice. It's
Yes.
just as good as awake practice. Yeah. There was a thing I read a while ago about visualization in athletes, that you visualize yourself going through
I
the
thought of that too.
and that you're better. But it's really funny because that you do get better by doing the visualizations. But
Yes.
I'm like, okay, does that also get you in shape? Because then you could just sit and think about running. Anyway,
But
we would
it
hope.
makes you more likely to get up and do it because you're already in that mindset.
Right, but can I
You
get a runner's high without having
No. Can you generate endorphin? I don't that's actually okay
yeah.
because all kinds of hormones get
Yeah.
firing
Yeah.
too. So maybe you can get an endorphin high from a running dream,
I hope so.
or a fear dream,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're in which you're running. It makes me think of Donnie Darko.
Oh,
You've
okay.
seen Donnie
I
Darko?
have seen Donnie Darko.
You know how he discovers that there's this silvery thing that comes out of your belly
Yeah.
and it pulls you forward? It's like fate.
Yes.
It's been a while
It's a
since I
tough
saw it.
movie to deconstruct.
Yes, because it's also a time travel
Yeah, or
dream.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like this silvery worm in your gut knows what you're going to do before you do it, and
Right.
it pulls you forward. So, I think about that in this kind of
Right.
context too, where we're talking about this, but also when I wanna make myself do something that I don't wanna do. I
Ah.
have found that if I think myself forward, I'm more likely to do it. Like, if I go to bed the night before thinking, "I'm gonna spin," 'cause
Yeah, yeah,
Th
yeah.
that's my runner's high is I
Right.
get it on the spin bike. So, but that transition from hanging out in my pajamas all day,
Right.
in the post-pandemic world, still pandemic world, it's really hard to put those clothes on and get in the sweaty exertion mindset because it's also boring. I'm sitting there on the bike
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm listening to music or whatever, but it's not as interesting as whatever the heck else I was doing,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
reading about bird dreams. So
Yes.
yeah, I would rather do that and check Facebook. But if I think the night before, I'm going to spin tomorrow, and I picture myself spinning it like, I don't mean like outside myself. I imagine
Oh, no, no,
myself on
no.
the
Yeah.
bike and
Right.
how it feels to be pedaling and sweating and standing on the
Yeah.
holding the handlebars and yeah, and that high that I get. I start to get excited about it and I'm much more likely to actually spin the next day. I
Yes.
don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. But then if you've worked on a new movement or a new choreography, say in spin, if you sleep on it and you
Oh,
dream about it, it would reinforce the memory of it because you can't move while you're dreaming, or at least unless you have the disorder where you do move.
yes.
The parts of the brain that fire are your arms, your legs, whatever's going on.
Yes, your little homunculus. I don't know if it's the homunculus, but
He's doing it. They're doing it.
your
Yeah.
brain is alive and the body's representation in the brain,
Right.
which is probably multifaceted and dispersed, not just in the homunculus, but all of that is going off too. Your brain is more awake when you're asleep than it is when you're awake.
I believe that.
I read that too.
I'm going to back up a little bit. Can't really observe other creatures' dreams directly. I mean, we've known since the 1950s that animals dream. They had enough, it was pretty convincing that there was evidence that other mammals and birds do indeed dream.
Mhm.
And that's what they talk about, mammals and birds, right? So
Yes.
this is Part of that evidence was rapid eye movement, which was only discovered in 1953.
Hmm.
And that stage of sleep corresponds, of course, with a dream state. That's kind of general knowledge. Your eyes move back and forth. You can't move much, but there's a lot of electric activity going on in your brain. As soon as they identified it in humans, they started studying it in animals. And almost all mammals and birds have been studied. This one article, actually from Earth and Sky, gave from dogs and cats to duck-billed platypuses.
Yes.
What do duck-billed platypuses dream
I
about?
have some answers to that.
Good, good. And even reptiles, they seem to go into this stage. And the other stages of sleep are the same as ours. They go through the same stages of sleep.
Yes.
Now, what they did was in order to prove that, say, a cat is actually dreaming, studies showed that cats, and this is out of the article, studies show that cats who were altered,
I saw that.
and I don't want to know how they did that or what
Mm-mm.
they did, but
No.
these cats were
Yep.
altered to move
Yes.
during REM sleep, and they ran around, they swatted their paws, they bit at imaginary objects.
Yeah.
So if that evidence is correct, cats do dream, and we have some idea about what they dream about. And if I can, I'm going to try and post this video
Oh, cool.
to our page. It is a kitten that's is seemingly is having a nightmare, and its
Okay.
mother, the mother cat, seems to comfort it.
Oh, yeah.
Very cute. So in 2001, we get back to the studies of the rats. Again, one of the reasons they're doing this is they want to know about memory. We want to be able to decode dreams. We want to be able to see what other people are dreaming. And so they can do that with rats to a large extent because of the maze. They've got the pattern. They've almost got the map of the brain, the electrical activity map of the brain while they're running through the maze. So if they're doing it in their dreams, the same map is repeated.
Yeah.
So again, they don't want to give credit to the animals, you know?
What do you mean credit?
Well, that we are all from the same bucket of
Yeah.
glue. So we're all
Okay.
going to have the same brain functions, even insects to a large
Well,
extent.
they lose permission to alter the brain of the cat
That's the one thing.
if they start doing
Yeah,
that.
I think it was in this MIT article where they didn't want to say it's a language thing. They didn't want to use the word consciousness.
Mhm. Was this the 1950s? When
Um,
was this study?
no, this is the rat studies actually like 2000s.
Okay.
But they want to learn how to help with amnesia, Alzheimer's, devise ways for people to
Okay.
learn and memorize more effectively. And the one, this researcher Wilson at MIT says it's been a century since Freud brought forward the study of the subconscious and the examination of the content of dreams as a tool for understanding nature of cognition and behaviors in humans.
Mhm.
We now have that means to bring this world of dreams into study of animal cognition. And by doing so, we gain a deeper insight into our own.
Yeah, we always have to come back and justify it,
Right.
how it
Yeah,
helps us.
exactly. So if fruit flies can learn, not only do they dream, why do they dream, and what do they dream about? We can, by looking at the dog dreaming, by looking at the cat dreaming, altered or not, which is just so wrong, we can guess what they're dreaming about.
Well, yeah, I have some informed guesses to offer.
Okay. Well, that's it.
Yeah?
Is why would an animal, probably us included, dream about one experience and not another?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer that.
The work that I've been doing at MIT helps them evaluate the content of dreams. Again, this is the rats in the maze, and create tests to see which awake patterns create patterns when the animal is asleep so that they can, again, see what the content of the dream is, if you think that that's possible. It also raises questions about really long held assumptions about animals' thought processes.
Yeah, I think the way I answer it is by, working backwards, the opposite way. if, this we're talking they're studying fruit flies and all these other creatures to make inferences about human sleep and cognition, and I'm going to look at human sleep and cognition and make some
Ah,
inferences
I see.
about animals.
Well, Wilson at MIT points out that dreams are the ultimate offline experience, and that the work that they're doing shows that animals are capable of reevaluating their experiences when they are not in the midst of
Mhm.
them. So, the purpose for dreams, why would anything dream? Why would we dream? Is it memory? Is it learning? We wouldn't do it if it wasn't necessary to some point. A fruit fly wouldn't do it if
Well,
it wasn't necessary for
alright.
cognition.
I The purpose of sleep?
Don't you think?
I this might have
Yeah.
been the same thing that you read. I mean, I'll see your sources later, but
Okay.
a scientist at MIT
Yes.
speculates that the, non-REM sleep, which also has dreams, as I said, the brain is taking the
Oh.
past and trying to figure out how
Mm.
that might relate to the future.
Okay.
Because they've studied people in the different phases and woken them up and said, "What were you dreaming about?" Yeah.
Right.
So that's the result of that study, that kind of study is during this phase, the brain takes things that it has learned in the past and tries to figure out how it relates to the future. In REM, you are actually trying to experience the future and apply the things that you learned.
Okay. So you're taking experiences and trying to apply them to novel situations in case those novel
Exactly.
situations present themselves.
Yes. And then there's this other guy from the University of Turku. He says it's pretty certain that our ancestors did dream because dreaming seems to be biologically programmed into our brain and the brains of even fruit flies. So,
Right.
and our ancestors' brains are pretty much identical with our brain. And as we're finding out, other animals' brains are very similar to ours.
Right.
And I have a little bit about avian brains if we get into that. Yeah, so but our ancestors lived in an environment that was full of all sorts of dangers. So REM sleep tends to be more prone to nightmares. And
Mm.
there's something about serotonin levels and all that too. So this person whose name I can't pronounce, Anti Revonsuo, my apologies. Um, he says the purpose of nightmares is to have us practice threatening events. It's like a simulation of danger.
Okay.
So we can rehearse how we would run away or hide. A recent development, there's a book out that anybody who knows me is sick of hearing me talk about, which is David Eaglemann's Live Wired. Oh, you're reading it. Yeah. So there was an article. I'll put it up. He and did I put his name in here? I did not. Anyway, Eagleman and another guy recently published an article which is a summary of his theory about why we dream. It's a completely different take on it, and he argues that the brain is so plastic, meaning it is constantly rewiring itself, and each neuron is in competition with the neurons near it for relevance, I guess,
Right.
purpose. Yes. So if you no lo- if you when you stop doing something, those brain cells immediately begin to get colonized by for other purposes.
Right. They atrophy.
Well, sometimes they atrophy, but sometimes they start doing other work.
Okay.
For
Right.
example,
Right.
he introduces this whole thing by talking about taking sighted people and blindfolding them and teaching them Braille
Right.
compared to teaching people Braille who are not blindfolded. So you have sighted people who are
Oh, okay.
mimicking blindness and sighted people who are not mimicking blindness, and both of them are learning Braille. The people who are wearing blindfolds learn Braille better, and the optical center of the brain starts to become used by tactile stimulation for the purpose of reading Braille. As soon as they take the blindfold off, they lose the ability to read Braille.
Oh,
Yeah, because
interesting.
yeah. Anyway, so and this starts happening within hours. So
Wow.
their theory is that the the theory of dreams is that he says they're mostly visual. You and I were talking about this the other day, and you're like, I hear things in my dreams, I feel things,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's a whole brain experience. So it's not just the visual cortex
Exactly.
that's at work here. But he says the brain is preserving the territory of the visual cortex by keeping it active at night. And I won't go into it all. The purpose of dreams, he says, is it's the strange love child of brain plasticity and the rotation of the planet. If we didn't have 12 some hours of,
Right,
depending on
right.
where you are on the globe,
Right.
um, yeah, of darkness.
Yes.
They also studied all kinds of primates and other creatures, but they also studied nocturnal animals.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Well, they sleep during the day.
Yeah, and they see as
Yes.
well, right? So yeah, but maybe the brain is preserving all of the neurons because as I was saying it, I feel things. You
Yes.
know, my propriocentricity is at work too. So I would think that if he's right, it's not just the neocortex that needs to be exercised,
Right.
right?
Well, that was it. I was listening to the audiobook and he was talking about that. And he's like, the reason that you have these dreams, the purpose of the dreams is visual and it's to keep those neurons active so they don't lose the real estate.
Yeah.
But I'm screaming in my car. I'm listening to the audiobook. I'm like, no, that can't be right. You're hearing stuff too. You don't need to preserve
Yeah.
that. You hear stuff in your
No,
sleep. I mean, you're not hearing it, but there is a level of awareness that if there's a
your
loud
mind's
sound.
ear hears it.
Right.
Your mind's fingers feel things.
Yes.
And you're thinking,
He doesn't even address that. He doesn't even go there because he knows it's a
well,
problem
he's
anyway.
focused. Oh, no, what I'm saying is maybe it's not a problem. Maybe the other neurons also need to be exercised. But we also obviously are learning,
Yes.
as you pointed out. Um, I read that it was Patrick McNamara that I read that was talking about these studies of REM sleep on cats that they had altered their
I
brains.
know.
They surgically disabled the part of the brain that paralyzes muscles during
Yeah,
REM sleep.
that's what I figured.
And,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we've all heard about people who have an REM sleep disorder, and so they pretty much have to be like in a straitjacket to
Well,
sleep
the
safely.
that Mike Birbiglia, stand-up
Yes,
comedian, he sleeps in a thing with like
he zips
oven
himself in a
mitts and he
sleeping bag
zips
or
himself
something.
up in a sleeping bag and he's got mittens on so he can't unzip the zippers. Because he'll jump out a window and, run down
He did
Nazis.
jump out
Yeah, he
of, didn't
did.
he?
And,
He did.
like, his girlfriend found him on top of, like, the refrigerator one time or something, like, he had climbed up. He's gonna hurt himself, and he has hurt himself
Yeah,
and other
or
people.
other people. Yeah.
So, yeah, to hear him talk about that's really, frightening. I mean, because
Yes.
there are I'm if you don't have that disorder, from time to time, you will move or talk, kind of like the
Well,
dog kicking the
there's
feet a little
sleepwalking
bit.
and sleep
Yeah.
peeing and,
Yeah.
sleep sex, those
Sleep
people who
eating, yeah.
climb on the
Yeah.
and Ambien, let's not forget about isn't
Oh,
it Ambien?
yeah,
Or
it's
one of those
Ambien.
that
Yep, yep.
yeah, that disrupts that, because I I have long thought, and maybe I read somewhere and I don't remember where, this is before this, that when you're falling asleep, that feeling of falling
Yes.
that we all have, where if you're suddenly, I don't know if your brain tells the story in retrospect, like there's a little lag or fast forward, but
There is a
you
stage called the hypnagogic stage, which is that stage where you're in between sleep and awake.
right. So your body is quietly paralyzing itself
Yeah.
so that you can prepare to dream safely, and you will have the sensation of falling because it affects your vestibular system.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And yeah, I read somewhere about the proximity of the vestibular system to, where is it? I mostly focused on flying dreams, which is, oh, why don't I talk about that? Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Yeah, because I got my starting point for this was, do birds dream about flying? And is it just like ours? I have some theories about my own flying dreams, which are rather frequent, and I'm not so much interested in what they mean Some people are like, "Oh, it's about freedom. You need to escape something," or it's an orgasm. Okay,
Yeah,
it's a
right.
symbol for an orgasm, or and then some people are like, "Oh no, you're astral projecting.
You are
Your soul is
flying.
leaving your body. You're actually flying." Um, and I'm thinking, no, it's my body's vestibular system adjusting to
Hmm,
dream paralysis. So it's related to the falling when you're
right,
falling asleep, that sensation that you tripped on the curb,
right.
suddenly you're like, oh, I was just walking to the car and I tripped. And I don't know if your brain tells you you were walking to your car
Ah,
after you trip,
yeah,
you have the sensation of tripping. Am I making any sense? I don't know which comes first
right.
because you tell stories to yourself after the fact.
Yes, you do.
You
You
think
tend
they
to
come in
do
sequence.
things, your brain, it's like it's
It's deja vu.
right. Well, not even that.
There are
You
lags
will
in your
do
brain.
something. There are lags, like, your hand will automatically do something, whatever, reach for
Yeah,
something, and then you tell yourself why you did that.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yes. So, and I don't, everybody's probably had the dream, the dream where you have to pee, and you're like, "Oh, I'm at a party, and there are all these people around. There must be a bathroom here, but I can't make my way through this crowd." And and now somebody's stopping and talking to me, but I really have to go to the bathroom. And then you get to the bathroom, and there are like 8 people in the bathroom, and you don't have privacy, and then you kick everybody out, and the toilet's not functional, and you're like, I can't pee either. And that's your dream telling you to hold it. You
Yes.
have
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's keeping you from wetting the bed. I read a dissertation, part of a dissertation. I never expect it's called it's this dissertation on the dream problem.
Ah,
And this guy Lydiard Heneage Horton, love these names. He says he has removed all doubt that flying dreams were of vasomotor origin.
okay.
And that's all I'm gonna say. It gets very technical,
Oh,
and
I
he's
bet.
injecting
Yeah.
people with epinephrine and stuff. I Anyway, um, so the crucial part of a dreaming brain is in the pons. That's what I was looking
Mhm.
for. The middle section of the brainstem. And near it is the collection of brain cells and neurons that help send you to sleep and wake you again. So,
Oh, okay.
the dreaming part of the brain is very close to the part of the brain that paralyzes you for safe sleep.
Okay.
And they receive it. That's where it receives signals from the inner ear, which is it tells you where your body is in space,
Mhm.
and it affects your sense of balance, which may create the illusion or the feeling of weightlessness or disorientation. So you're more likely in those moments to have a flying dream or a falling dream
Right.
or a floating levitation dream, right? And you also will have dreams in which you feel like you're paralyzed. You become aware of these dreams, I think, are incorporating sensations into the
Yes.
dream story
Well,
and
and
making
we've
and
all had
looking.
that happen where the alarm's going off, but in your dream, it's the symbols from the parade going by. No, it's your alarm clock, and you're just translating
Yes.
it as that.
Yes, your brain is working on synthesizing everything that it's experiencing. I saw references in a couple places to temperature in flying dreams and falling dreams too, that if you feel cold, your brain will interpret that as movement and flight or
Oh,
falling, like speed against your skin.
right.
It interprets it as rapid movement through the air. But I also thought that dreaming of flying, I've thought about it a lot actually. Like, why? Because we don't fly.
Right.
So why would we dream that we fly? We do all the other things
Yeah,
that
it's
you
not a
name.
learning, it's not a memory, like trying to sort out which memories to keep.
Right.
Right.
Right, you weren't flying yesterday, on your own
Right.
locomotion. So, the 2 things that I came up with by thinking long and hard about my own dreams, one is swimming.
Hmm.
I can swim. I've been swimming since I was a very small child. My little sister learned to swim before she learned to talk. So these are like primordial memories for
Right.
me. This is just like walking and eating and everything else. Swimming is deeply encoded in my brain. And I noticed that I often am making motions in the air to propel myself that are the same motions I make when I'm swimming. So
Oh, okay.
my brain may be incorporating the sense of weightlessness
Yes.
that I'm feeling from my vestibular system
Mhm.
and saying, "Oh, well, you're you're flying." So there's that, but also the engine of flight seems to be in my torso. It's not really in my arms. I'm not pulling, doing the
Right.
breaststroke in the air. Um, I try that, and I try kicking to propel myself, especially if somebody's chasing me and I can't get altitude or they're just always so jealous that I'm able to fly. They try to catch me and keep me from doing my thing. But, um, I think it might be from being picked up when you were a little child
Okay.
because it feels like it's my rib cage, and that's when we lift a child, we pick them up from under the arms and launch them up. But that doesn't, that's flying dreams. That's not the kind of flying dream a bird would have. I'm thinking like flying dreams for birds are going to be the same as our dreams of walking or driving a car, right? Just stuff you do in the daytime. I once got really interested in dreams and I started keeping a sleep diary,
Okay.
a dream journal, not a sleep diary,
Yes.
a dream. They were very different things. It was a dream
Yes.
journal. I would wake up and write down a dream that I remembered. And I started noticing that elements of my previous day had occurred in the dream. They were jumbled up.
Right.
So I would write them down too. So the more I wrote, the more I remembered. Like, the more detail of the dream
Right.
and the more dreams I remembered. So, I
Yes.
got to the point where not only I would wake up and I would remember, like, 4 dreams in great
Mhm.
detail, and I would write them all down and write down everything that had happened the day before that occurred in the dream as an
Oh,
explanation.
wow.
I did this for a very long time, and it started to take up too much time in each day, and I had to give it up. But my conclusion from that very scientific study
Yes.
was, you're just dreaming about the shit that happened the day before. That's really, I mean, sometimes there's, like, old stuff and whatever you're going
Mhm.
through, like, if you're having some strife in your life or worry, that's gonna color the things in your dream.
Sure.
Yeah, and I said I was gonna work backwards, now that I've told you a little bit about what I learned about dreams,
Yes.
that they're rehearsing the things that happened in the day in order to move them into long-term memory,
Mhm.
so it's part of learning, and people and animals who learn something, if they dream, they do it better the next day.
And if you read before you go to sleep,
They tell you that,
yes,
yes. If you
and
study before you go to sleep,
right, and
yes.
working problems out.
Yes. And you can even tell yourself, maybe the fact that, like, if you go to bed and you think, "Okay, I really wanna I wanna dream about an answer to this problem," because there's a lot of free association and you can have an
Sure.
aha moment, you often do. Although, if I wake up and write down my aha, I wake up I read it the next day and it's like, "That's not an aha, that's
That's like, shoe
that's
on your
just my
head.
my
Yeah.
dreams are slow-witted." But, sometimes it's a good idea, but usually I just feel like it was an aha. I
Right.
dreamed it was an aha, and it's not really. The thing is, are animals' dreams just like ours? Are they also dreaming the stuff that they experienced in the daytime? Are their dreams colored by their moods? Are they also
Right.
like, does a bird have flying dreams that are different from flying dreams? Like, does it have two kinds of flying dreams because its vestibular system is disturbed? And so, would it dream then that it was floating on the water or buffeted by a storm? Would that be the
Right.
equivalent of what or do they dream that they're doing human things like driving a car or playing the piano? Because we dream we're flying. So I don't know, but the safest bet is to look at their brains and see if they are like ours, and
Right.
then their dreams are like ours. And recent studies have come out, maybe you saw them, that what we thought was stupid, like bird brains are small.
Right.
So we thought birds are stupid, and we even have a slur for that. You call somebody a bird brain to disparage them and say that they're stupid. It turns out that bird brains are just small, probably because they have to be lightweight for flight. Like
Ah,
their bones are hollow, right?
right.
So, what they have done, they're like microchips. Their brains are like microchips. They made everything smaller.
Yes.
So they don't have fewer neurons. In fact, they have
No?
more neurons. And they also, like, I think it was the neocortex. There's a part of the brain that we're very proud of. We have a big,
Yes. Yes.
but the birds did not have that. So they're like, "Oh, they don't have higher thought. They don't have a super ego," or, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
they do have a neocortex. It's just their brains are just arranged a little differently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, there's an article in Scientific American, which I'll put in our show notes, which you find on our website. So I put a link in our description of the podcast,
Mhm.
but then that'll take you through to the show notes on our website. Or you could just go straight to the website, thisanimallife.com. But anyway, the Scientific American article is called Bird Brains Are Far More Human Like Than Once Thought. And the research undercuts primate exceptionalism. This scientist, Herculano Hosel, his last name is Herculano Hosel. He says, I hope people will be tempted to drop the notion that there is something very unique and exclusive about the human brain. So, bird brains and cat brains and any other kind of anything with a collection of neurons
Yes.
likely yeah. I read a bunch of articles about avian sleep. Well, oh, wait, before I move on, the number of neurons in the brains of more than 2 dozen species of birds, ranging in size from the tiny zebra finch
Mhm.
to the 6-foot-tall emu, found that they consistently have more neurons packed into their small brains than are stuffed into mammalian or even primate brains of the same mass.
Wow.
Parrot and songbird brains contain about twice as many neurons as primate brains, 2 to 4 times as many neurons as rodent brains.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the brains of parrots and crows have a much higher density of neurons than primate brains. And the proportion of neurons in the forebrain is significantly higher.
Okay.
That's not to say that they are smarter than us, but they are certainly smarter than we thought they were by far
Yes.
and more similar to us. So,
Yes.
if they sleep, their dreams are going to probably be the flycatchers catching flies, you know? The osprey is diving for fish and it maybe, interacting with others
I
and
was just gonna say, what if their, like, grade school crush they haven't thought about in 20 years walks by, and you go,
Oh, and they're having little bird
"Bobby dream?"
sex.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
bird
yeah,
sex.
they're
Like, do animals dream about sex? Of course they
of course
do.
they do.
They
Of course they do.
must. They
Yes.
must.
So, that I mean, we can't like in the case with humans, we wake them up and we say, "What were you dreaming about?" And we find out they're just dreaming about getting a cup of coffee, you know?
I just cup of
Yeah.
coffee and suddenly it turned into a battery and yeah.
Yeah, they're having that stuff, but it's just the stuff in their lives, you know? And the David Eagleman book, I don't know where you are in it, but, he talks about a neuron's a neuron, you know? They're the
Yeah.
same, all over the place, and they can do all kinds of different jobs. If you took a bird brain and you put it in a human, it would start thinking human stuff and learning to use its fingers and because that's what it has now, and
Right.
if we got put into a bird, we would start learning how to use our wings. So one last thing about birds that is different is their EEG and, REM and all
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the duration and types of sleep stages is a little
Yes.
different because their need for wakefulness is different.
Okay.
Their need to hold their heads up is different from ours, that kind
Yes.
of the differences were
Right.
largely anatomical and lifestyle differences,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
because they live in a nest, you know,
Yeah.
and they don't wanna fall out of the nest and also some of the birds, I mean, they migrate and
Right.
they, or they're pelagic, meaning that they spend weeks and weeks out at sea, and
Yes.
so they sleep in the sky. They
Wow.
sleep while flying, and dolphins sleep while swimming, and,
Well,
that's
the dolphins are basically one hemisphere's awake and the
I
other
was
one's
gonna say that.
asleep. So,
Yes.
do birds do the same thing?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
You stole my thunder on that. What is it called? Oh,
Sorry.
no, no, I'm teasing you. Asymmetrical sleep, is it? Or unihemispheric? How was
Something
that?
I don't remember what it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will put some of that information up too, about the different kinds of sleep. But they still have REM, and they have brains just almost just like ours, I guess. I gotta qualify it, but they're much tinier.
They're much tinier. They are I just saw it today. I didn't read it, but it was an article and it was I forget where it is, but cockatoos
Mhm.
are teaching other cockatoos how to raid garbage bins.
Nice. You know, I just wanna say, how excited and happy I am when we find out that they're just like us. Something in me rejoices. I guess I'm a biophil,
Yes.
um, a lover of life. I love knowing that I'm not so alone.
Yes.
For some reason, like the birds at my bird feeder are just like other people, like, um, but, well, yeah, I guess I think of them as persons, as characters,
Yeah, I do too.
which is why I haven't been able to eat them for 30
Right.
some years, but because I just can't. But I there's also a great deal of sorrow for me in these discoveries because of the
Yeah.
way, some of the stuff you were talking about before, like I can't, how did they altered the brain of the cat, and you're like, Let's just close
Yeah,
this
I
curtain
don't wanna
here
know
on,
about
on
that.
that, and celebrate all the cool things we learned
Right.
from torturing this cat.
Yes.
Um, it just breaks my heart. And then I grew up with birds.
Yeah.
We had parrots when I was growing up. We had cockatoos, because we lived in West Africa, and they would catch them. They would take them right out of nests
Yes.
and catch
Well,
them
and that's
wild,
how
and
yeah, that's with parrots too. That's
yeah,
specifically how they get parrots, right?
yeah.
They steal the
So,
babies.
we brought them to the States with us. We had 3 African greys that we when we moved back to the United States, we had 3 greys, and when we lived in Jakarta, we had a cockatoo. My mother loved that bird. She cradled him in her arms, but the greys were just in a cage,
Yeah.
and they would pluck their feathers out
Mhm.
on their chests, and they would rock back and forth, and we thought they were stupid. Yeah, so I think I have a lot of guilt.
Mhm.
I know we didn't know. And then I went on and I raised finches, and I was much nicer to my finches than my family was to their parrots.
Yes.
Yeah, I learned a lot from them,
Yes.
and they lived enriched lives flying loose in my house.
You know what I want? I want
What do you
somebody to tell me that they had a gray parrot or a macaw or a cockatoo and it talked in its sleep. That's what I wanna know. I want
Yes.
that story.
Well, I can tell
Any
you that.
Oh, do they do that?
Yeah, we would cover the cage at night,
Uh-huh.
and he would our African gray's name was Curtis. You would hear Curtis talking to himself. Curtis learned, as he got older, he learned to say all kinds of
I
things,
bet.
and I have lots of Curtis stories about the uncanny things that he said. But yeah, he would mumble to himself, and sometimes that mumbling we took to be the sound of conversation in another room.
Oh.
Yeah, he would go.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, yeah, and you can in the case of an African Grey, they can imitate your voice too.
Yes, I
So,
know.
he said hello just like each different household member, and, that little laugh, that would be my mother, like, talking on the phone. One time, I was in a bathroom. I lived in this house that had a second-story bathroom that you couldn't see out the window because there was a hemlock tree right outside the window, like, growing right up against the house, so it was really dark in there. And I was in the bathroom and I heard what sounded like Curtis. Now, this is years and years later. I'm a
Okay.
grown up, right? And I'm alone in the bathroom and I hear Curtis going, and it was all kinds of sounds. And you didn't need a curtain there, right? Because you couldn't see out at all.
Right.
Nobody could see in. But I think I had a curtain anyway because, you know,
Yeah.
I was raised Presbyterian. But anyway. So I opened the curtain and I looked out and there was a blue jay
Oh.
sleeping
Oh.
on a branch right outside my window, and that blue jay, Anne, was making so many different sounds.
Wow.
Like, I thought they just went, "Jay, Jay." But this bird had a repertoire of syllables, and
Wow.
it was sound asleep.
That's wonderful. See, that's we are all from the same goo. Gaia
Yeah,
man, we're all connected.
I would love for someone to tell us bird dreams,
Yes.
or, any animal dream, actually. Oh, when we were talking, I can't we have an episode about octopuses that we I don't
Yes,
know
we'll
when
be
we're gonna
talking about
share
that.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Before
When
this.
are we
Before this.
It'll be before
It'll
this
be
one.
before this.
Okay. Okay, so
Yes, so you can refer to
as
it.
we said, and
Yes.
actually, I don't think we said this in the octopus episode, but octopuses dream in colors and their
Right.
colors shift on their bodies.
Yes.
I mean, they don't dream in colors. What am I saying? I'm saying
Their
that
bodies reproduce the colors that they would use when they were scared
so
or
that isn't
hunting.
paralyzed by their whatever that
Yeah, well,
portion of the brain.
they're physically paralyzed.
Right, but that effect is
Right.
not,
Right.
'cause that's not muscular.
No. No, and that would be neuronal brain, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to play a clip from the nature episode Octopus Making Contact. It's season 38, episode 1, where David Scheel is describing Heidi the octopus, who he has living in his home and he's studying.
And last night, I witnessed something I've never seen recorded before. You know, if she is dreaming, this is a dramatic moment. You could almost just narrate the body changes and narrate the dream. So she's asleep. She sees a crab and her color starts to change a little bit. Then she turns all dark. Octopuses will do that when they leave the bottom. This is a camouflage, like she's just subdued a crab and now she's going to sit there and eat it, and she doesn't want anyone to notice her. It's a very unusual behavior to see the color come and go on her mantle like that. I mean, just to be able to see all the different color patterns just flashing one after another. You don't usually see that when an animal's sleeping. This really is fascinating. But yeah, if she's dreaming, that's the dream.
This clip is from YouTube and well worth watching. It's really beautiful.
And when you knew we were gonna do this episode, did you tell yourself to dream things?
No, I used to do that as a child.
Oh, you did?
Yes, my mother taught me to do it. She said because I had such vivid, gruesome nightmares.
Oh,
And
so
so she would say, start daydreaming about what you want to dream about. So I had many romps with Pegasus. I had a elephant that hung out in my
so it
backyard.
worked.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd slip from that daydream and it would hold over and continue into my dreams.
I saw studies or references to studies in the studies I was reading
Yes.
about a relationship between, REM sleep and nightmares and depression, that
Hmm.
the more I'm not gonna be able to encapsulate, but there was something about serotonin levels
Yes.
that make you have a nightmare, and as I said before,
Huh.
it's posited that,
Yes.
um, that there's a purpose to the nightmare, which is to protect you because you rehearse. I guess that's why we like true crime,
Yeah.
um, that you rehearse scary situations so that you're better able to defend yourself
Yes.
or save yourself, whatever, from falling off the cliff. But that I don't know if it was a chicken and the egg thing, like, is there an REM sleep disorder that causes depression because it rehearses those neural
Oh.
connections that, are anxious and depressed, um,
Hmm.
and morose or whatever? Or are you contributing to your own frequency of nightmares and extremity of nightmares by your depression? I don't know which causes which, but there's a correlation.
Well, there is the theory and therapy of, say you have anxiety, and the more you think and play situations, say you have social anxiety, the
Mhm.
more you think about a social situation and play it out in your head, you become desensitized.
Yes.
And, fear of snakes, you gotta handle snakes, you put
What
yourself in
is
that
it?
situation. So is your brain doing that?
CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yes, yes. And that's what
Yes.
that is, right. That's
You can
exactly what
retrain
that
your
is. You're
neurons.
retraining your neurons. Are the dreams then processing those depressive episodes?
Yes, and making them worse. Like you were learning to be depressed.
Well, you're learning how to not let that
Be happy.
increase your depression.
Oh, I don't know.
Hmm. And
Hmm.
that's what I meant by working through the situations.
Yeah. I'll see. Let me make a note here. I'll put that in the show notes if I can find what that study was.
Yes, I'd like to read that actually, because that makes really good sense. Given my nightmares and history, and since I am on depression medicine, I don't have nightmares.
Oh,
So that's interesting. Yeah.
that is interesting. I feel sorry for people who don't have flying dreams. I'm always happy when I do. And I did see that there's a correlation between, I mean, not all flying dreams are happy,
Right.
and I've had scary ones, but there is also a feeling of euphoria that often accompanies them.
Yes. There's been certain dreams that I can still remember snippets of because of the euphoric just wave that overtook me during them. So it's
Yeah,
not,
that's related to the vestibular system and the hormones
oh,
that are happening then.
that's very cool. We talk about dreams as learning, so yeah, birds are going to be cracking nuts or digging things up or remembering it through their dreams where they put all their seeds, where they hid them.
By the way, you need to go listen to your hen house at night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I
See
do.
if they're talking to themselves. Mhm.
Yes, I do. Well, they do. They murmur. There is quiet murmuring.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go out there and yeah, they do. They kind of coo, and I just assumed that was nighttime noise. I never really thought about it.
That like they're telling each other a little bedtime
Yeah,
story, singing a lullaby.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'll have to do that tonight.
cool.
Yeah, I'll record it.
Yes, please
I'll do
do.
that. But I just don't think it's just cracking nuts and remembering your map of seeds. I think it's a lot more emotional than that.
I'm sure. I have no
And
doubt it's
random
just like ours.
and
Mhm,
fantasy
mhm.
and
Yeah, which means that when they get up in the morning, they're having to cope with what the fuck just happened
that's
to
right.
me, just like we are. And they're probably boring each other, you know? This boy, I have to when somebody
Oh,
tells me the
absolutely.
dream, I'm just like, "Oh, for all right, I'll listen to your dream." You know? Ugh,
Imagine
that.
ravens. Well, I'm gonna write a poem about what platypuses dream
Oh,
about.
yeah. You know what they dream about? Their little poison feet.
Meat and
Yeah,
eggs and
laying an egg.
rubbery laying an egg.
And it hatches and it's a lizard, and they're like, "What?"
Yeah, do birds do that? Like, oh my
Yes,
god, the eggs
yes, that's
hatch
what I'm
and they're
saying. Of course,
snakes. Yeah,
yes, yes, they
they
must. Of
must.
course they
They
do.
must.
It's all random just like ours. I have no doubt. Yeah, yeah. And then they're boring each other. They're sitting up there on the wire together over the traffic, and one of them's going, I dreamed last night that I fell off this wire down into this cars down there, and it became a river, and and they were all alligators, not cars. They're like, "Oh, Reggie's telling me another dream."
We don't really mean we don't want to know your dreams. So email us. Tell us your animal dreams. Check out our website at www.thisanimallife.com. Join our Facebook page. Or email us, thisanimallife@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And while you're here, go ahead and subscribe. Give us 5 stars, write a review. It would increase our visibility on these platforms so more people can join us in exploring this animal life. Our music is by incredible composer and performer Chip Salerno. Find more of Chip's music on SoundCloud.com.